increase us in knowledge and give us the reward of seeking the knowledge. Allahumma ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Now, I believe this is the third lecture that we are talking about, kind of introduction about the fiqh. And when we talk about the fiqh, that means to have the full understanding, the deep understanding for the Islamic jurisprudence. And when we talk about the Sharia laws, when we talk about the rules of the Quran and the Sunnah, and we give before the details of the meaning, the linguistic meaning of the word fiqh. Fiqh is to fully understand, is to absorb the meaning of something. That is a linguistic meaning, and that can cover each and every branch in the Islam as religion. But specifically when it comes to the Sharia law, when it comes to what to do, what not to do, what is halal and what is haram, then that is something different. And alhamdulillah, we mentioned the difference between usul al-fiqh and the fiqh itself. Usul al-fiqh, that means the fundamentals of fiqh. And the fiqh itself, these are the rules with the differences of the madhahib. And we mentioned that the usul al-fiqh, it has the tools that the faqih or the scholar will need to determine a certain Islamic rule. So that person needs to study how to extract the Islamic rule, how to know and how to have the measure, how to have his own opinion, what are the rules, under which criteria that he extracted that rule. So we said that's for the professionals, the scholars, the imams, and the other one, and that's what we are required to learn. As normal people, we need to learn not usul al-fiqh. If we got it, that's something good. But if we cannot, at least to get the fiqh. And today, I just wanted to answer this question. You have heard before about that we have different madhahib, 4 madhahib in Islam: Abu Hanifa, Shafi'i, Al-Imam Malik, Al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So how these madhahib appeared? How did they come to the existence? What happened? Do you think that we have only 4 madhahib? And that was the previous question. What's the oldest madhab in general? And it was Abadi, okay? And when it comes to what is the oldest madhab amongst the 4 madhahib, so it is Abu Hanifa, okay? So it is madhab Abu Hanifa. But let me take you to the journey, and I wish, inshallah, if you still have the concentration at the end, so you can have all these numbers, because I have many numbers and many names that I'm going to share with you today. And I wish, inshallah, if we have the brothers and sisters here on the live session, if you wanted to write down, the information, that would be something good, inshallah. So let's take it from the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whatever they wanted to ask about something, whatever they differed about something, they have their Rasul, their Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and their Mufti at the same time. He used to issue, he is the only person has the authority to issue the fatwa during his lifetime. And it was a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the companions, in some incidents, they used to think by themselves. They used to take their own opinion in times of traveling somewhere. If they are traveling somewhere, they used to do ijtihad to exert oneself to try to extract the opinion. It is your own interpretation. It's your own opinion. That is called ijtihad. So some of the companions, and that wasn't in the presence of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some of them are traveling. They used to give their own opinion, and then when they come back, they used to ask Rasulullah, we had the issue of so and so, so what do you think? and whether Rasulullah ﷺ agrees upon what happened or he corrects them, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the main source here and the main mufti, or the one who is giving the Islamic law, Islamic rule, is Rasulullah himself. And that was based on the Quran, the direct revelation, or the hadith, which is also one of the types of revelation. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah said, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He is not talking from his own vain desire. That's Rasulullah. In huwa illa wahyun yuha. That's only a revelation was revealed to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the case. After the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we came to the time of al-khulafa, or as-sahaba, the companions, or al-khulafa. Khulafa, a plural word of khalifa. So they almost had the khalifa to give the fatwa. Even the khalifa himself could consult some of the scholars, but at the end, he is the one who will issue the fatwa. Sometimes they have some of the judges, like Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, for example. So he was a judge. So they used to assign some of the judges. They are judging by Islamic law. So those are the companions. The best generation after, or the best generation came after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the continuation of the time of the Sahaba, the companions. They lived with Rasulullah. They practiced Islam with him. They took from the pure source. That's our beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the time of the Sahaba. But let me tell you something about this time to know why we do have differences in opinion. The first time, during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to send some of the companions to teach the Islam in different places, different cities. And he used to send, even after the death of Rasulullah, the Khalifas used to send some of the companions to the different places to teach Islam and to teach people Quran, give interpretation to the Quran. And then you will figure out that you will get lots of people started to enter Islam and their tongue is not Arabic. So they wanted someone to explain Quran, to give the interpretation of Quran. And that was during the time of the companionship, during the time of the Sahaba. And I will give you 3 main schools started to appear. And when we talk about schools, that's not a physical building. We are talking about a way of thinking, school of thought, body of knowledge. They try to come together. They try to study together. One of the companions, he has multiple students, and even the students have other students. So that it's like a chain of seeking the knowledge, and the whole idea, or the whole knowledge was taken from that companion, individual companion, to all those students. This is what we call it a school or a madhab. So even those who had learned from, for example, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anh traveled to Iraq, to Al-Kufa and Al-Basra. And he started to establish his own madrasa, his own school, his own way of teaching. And he started to get his own students, and the students has other students, and they started to apply his curriculum. So we can linguistically consider that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud had madhab. So because madhab, the word madhab, it is the school of thinking, the way of thinking, the school of thought. Okay, so let me give you some of the names. In Al-Madinah, I said that we have 3 major schools started to appear during the time of the companions. during the time of the Khalifas. So we have Zayd ibn Thabit in al-Madinah, Abdullah ibn Umar. He's the son of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. He started to, we are talking about the main teachers, the leaders of knowledge during that time. That was in al-Madinah. In Mecca, we had Abdullah ibn Abbas, the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And I explained before who is Abdullah ibn Abbas. And we wish that our ummah now has a person like Abdullah ibn Abbas. And in Iraq, as I mentioned, we had Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, and we have Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. So they started to take the knowledge from all those people. And by the way, they had students, and those students, they became, scholars afterwards, and they got students. They started to get halakas, circles of knowledge, and from that time, we started to have differences in opinion. And let me give you the explanation. All of them are companions. All of them memorized the Quran. All of them got the knowledge from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But I just wanted to make something, it's extremely important. They are not owners, or they are not representing Islam like as individuals by themselves. They are not calling that they have new Islam. So the madhab is not deen. The madhab itself is not a religion by itself. It's knowledge, way of thinking. It's an opinion. It's not a religion, means it's like you have a religion, Islam version Abu Hanifa, Islam version Shafi'i, Islam version Maliki. No, we have only one Islam. And number two, they didn't and never disagreed or had differences related to issues like Aqidah. Allah is one. We believe in all the prophets, the angels, the messengers, the revelation, the day of judgment, the destiny, and they didn't differ about the basics. Like how many salah we have per day? 5. That's in all. So how many rak'ahs for Maghrib? 3. That's in all. Yes. So they didn't differ in the basics. So don't, because these are some of the allegations. They tell you, the Muslims are not the same because we have those and we have those. No, listen, that's not a religion by itself. That's not even a clash. So why some people wanted to try to picture this in the minds of people, even the non-Muslims, that Muslims have clashes between them because of the madhahib. That's not true. The madhahib, they differed about minor things sometimes, and sometimes major things, but it's not related to the aqidah, the basics of, or the fundamentals of belief. They agreed upon all these points. So that has to be so highlighted, that we got this meaning. They didn't differ about the aqidah. And the issue number 3, I wanted to share with you, that they weren't enemies. They weren't enemies. Moreover, they became, or some of them had learned from each other, and they respected each other. They had the tolerance. They had the flexibility to listen and to accept the diversity, to accept that they came with different opinions, because I will tell you the names, and you will figure out, then you can draw by yourself the chain of the transmission, and you will find that, for instance, that Imam al-Shafi'i, he was a student of Imam Malik. Imam Malik is his sheikh. He was the student of Malik. And even Malik, he had the knowledge from one of the students of Abu Hanifa. And one like Al-Shaybani, for example. Al-Shaybani is the student of Abu Hanifa. He came and he took the knowledge from Imam Malik. And he reviewed and revised and memorized Al-Muwatta, the book of Imam Malik, which is the collection of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Al-Shaybani himself praised Al-Imam Malik, praised the Imam Malik, and he compiled Al-Muwatta. And he mentioned, he compiled and like another version, and he put his commentaries on Al-Muwatta. Then he started to take the knowledge from Imam Malik for too much time, and he respected, he never talked bad about him. So they weren't extremists like lots of Muslims nowadays. So let's take some of the names. You remember the three main schools in Al-Madinah, Mecca, and Al-Iraq, Basra or Al-Kufa. So in Al-Madinah you have Zayd ibn Thabit and Abdullah ibn Umar. Then Abdullah ibn Umar, he has two students, Nafi' and Salim. That Salim, the second student, Imam Malik got the knowledge from him. And that's why they call it the most authentic chain of the transmission. Malik, Imam Malik, and that he took from Az-Zuhri, and Zuhri took from Salim, and Salim took from Ibn Umar. So you have Ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar, and who is his student? Salim. And who is the student of Salim? Az-Zuhri. And who is the student of Az-Zuhri? Imam Malik. Okay? I just wanted to see the interactions, how they got mixed together to the point that you say, who is the student of who? You know? So let's continue. And then in Mecca, we had mentioned Abdullah ibn Abbas. Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhuma, he had a student, his name Amr ibn Dinar. And Amr ibn Dinar has a student, his name is Sufyan ibn Uyayna. By the way, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, one of the leaders and the scholars of Islam, he had his own madhab. So do not say that only we had 4 madhahib. We had many of the madhahib, but most of them were withered away because of they didn't have too much students to preserve their knowledge and to write it down. That's why it was it withered away. That means Sufyan ibn Uyayna had his own madhab or his own way of thinking. And you have also Al-Awza'i, one of the great scholars at that time, Al-Awza'i. Then in Egypt, you have Al-Layth ibn Sa'd. Al-Layth ibn Sa'd, one of the great scholars and faqihs, and he had his own madhab, but also that was withered away. It didn't stay because of the few students, they couldn't preserve the knowledge of the Imam, and years after years after years, that was forgotten. You know? So even those students, they were greater in knowledge than the Imams themselves. Because most of people think, and please be careful with that statement, that we have 4 madhahib, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Some people used to say, they are the greatest scholars of Islam. No. They are one of the greatest scholars of Islam. Not exclusively, just those 4 people are the greatest. So if we said that they are the greatest scholars, so where is Abdullah ibn Abbas? If we said they are the greatest, so where is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud? The one who used to give the interpretation of the Quran, and he used to recite Quran with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself. So the 4 Imams are some of the greatest Imams, the greatest scholars in the Islamic history, but not the only scholars in Islam. So now, as you can see, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud in Iraq had students. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, one of his students is Alqamah. Alqamah. And Alqamah, one of his students is Ibrahim. And one of the students of Ibrahim is Hammad. And who is the student of Hammad? Who is the student of Hammad? Imam Abu Hanifa. So Imam Abu Hanifa was born in Iraq. That's why he got affected by the chain of the transmission from Hammad to Ibrahim to Alqamah to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So now you can see the chain of the transmission. I will let you know again, why did they differ? Why that happened? And from where? I will tell you the reason. But just I wanted you to picture this in your mind. Now you can start writing down your numbers. And Imam Abu Hanifa was the oldest amongst the 4 madhahib, as he born at the 80 year of Hijrah. The year number 80 of Hijrah. That's Imam Abu Hanifa. And he died at the year of 150. Barakallahu feek. 150. And 150, that was the year that Imam Shafi'i was born. Okay? So just I wanted to stop here. Some of the extremists, Wallahi, may Allah protect us from them. They started to say, you know what? Once our Imam appeared, your Imam gone. Your Imam had gone. And they said, the other team said, your Imam was so shy, he couldn't appear till our Imam had gone. You see that bad language? So those seems like Allah didn't make anything. Yes. So that those who are moderate, who are nice in their way of thinking, they said, why not saying that we had a sun and it went down, and then we have a sun, another sun came up to enlighten our ummah. You see? That's the way. That's the difference. Then continue. Let's continue. So who was the first? Imam Abu Hanifa, born 80 and died at 150. And who is the next? No, Imam Malik. Imam Malik. Imam Malik ibn Anas ibn Malik. He born at 93 Hijri. And he died 179. 179. And by the way, when we say Imam Malik ibn Anas, we have a lot of people, they think about that his father is Anas ibn Malik, the servant of Rasulullah. No, there is no relationship between Malik, Imam Malik, the owner of the madhab, and Sayyiduna Malik, the servant of Rasulullah. Because actually, Imam Malik, Sayyiduna Anas ibn Malik, the companion, Sayyiduna Anas ibn Malik, died at the year 93. That's why there is an argument. I just wanted to share with you because I spent like 2 days, I was enjoying reading about this argument. And I had called one of my friends in Egypt and I shared with them some of the points. Do we think or consider Imam Abu Hanifa as a tabi'i or the followers of the tabi'in? Like we have the generation of Rasulullah, then the companions, then the followers of the followers. All of them, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, all of them come to that fourth one, followers of the followers, except Imam Abu Hanifa. Yes. Yes, they differed whether he saw Anas ibn Malik or not, because Anas ibn Malik was the last one of the companions to die. Yes, so he had 13 years. So they said whether he saw Anas or didn't see Anas. So if he saw Anas, he would be considered tabi'i. And if he didn't see, that he is a follower of the followers. We came to the conclusion that he is tabi'i and he saw Anas ibn Malik. That Imam Abu Hanifa is one of the followers, one of the tabi'in who came after the generation of the companions. Is that good now? Is that clear? Do you think that we could continue or you full of information? Let's move a little bit, okay? Hajj Wajdi, when you get full, just let me know to stop. Okay, move on. So Imam Malik, as we said, born at 93 and died 179. Then Imam Shafi'i, born at 150 and died 204. 204. Then Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was born at 164 and died 241. That's Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Let me give you some of the things. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, 164 and died 241. Imam Shafi'i, 150, died 171, 200 and 204. So that's the case now. Let's take some of the names to know how they interacted. So Imam Abu Hanifa, who is the most primarily students for him? Two names. I think you know one of them. Abu Hanifa, Imam Abu Hanifa. What is his closest students? Who are his closest students? Abu Yusuf and Muhammad al-Shaybani. Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani. Those are his two closest students. And by the way, Imam Abu Hanifa, his madhab is so unique because of many things. One of them, that his madhab is not only the opinions of Abu Hanifa. His madhab is not consisted of just Abu Hanifa's words, but they had an assembly. They had collective efforts. So he had in his circle, in his majlis, in his gathering in the masjid, he had judges, he had scholars, he had Abu Yusuf, he had the Shaybani, he had many of the scholars, and they used to discuss the issue. And when they agree upon, sometimes in some narrations, they used to discuss one issue for a month. Whatever they come as a conclusion, they used to write it down under the name of Imam Abu Hanifa. So not all the madhab is his own individual opinion. That's a collective work. I just wanted you to know about this, and that makes the madhab so unique. So let's move on. So Imam Abu Hanifa, and we mentioned who is the ustad, the sheikh of Imam Abu Hanifa? Hamad, Allahu Akbar. That means you had draw your chart very well to get the name very quickly. Yes, I made my own chart in my house. So Hamad, and he was the Ustaz, the Sheikh of Abu Hanifa. And not only him, you will get to see that Imam Abu Hanifa had many sheikhs. And then you have Imam Malik. Again, he has no relationship to do with Sayyiduna Anas ibn Malik. Let me give you his full name. Malik ibn Anas ibn Malik ibn Abi Amir. Imam Malik ibn Anas ibn Malik ibn Abi Amir. That's his full name. So you can distinguish him. When any of the scholars would say Al-Imam Malik ibn Amir, you will get to know that that's the owner of the madhab, the one who has the madhab. And then we mentioned Imam al-Shafi'i. Who is the Sheikh of Imam al-Shafi'i? Imam Malik. Al-Imam Malik was the Sheikh of Imam al-Shafi'i. And not only this, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the fourth one, who is his Sheikh? Imam al-Shafi'i. So Imam al-Shafi'i is the student of Malik. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal is the student of al-Shafi'i. And take the surprise here. Both of them, I mean Imam al-Shafi'i and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, both of them got the knowledge from Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani. Who is al-Shaybani? The student of Imam Abu Hanifa. So they got the knowledge of Abu Hanifa through his student. So Imam al-Shafi'i, for example, got the knowledge of Imam Malik, and he got the knowledge of Imam Abu Hanifa through his student, Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Shaybani. And not only this, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal had met Abu Yusuf, the other student for Imam Abu Hanifa, and he got his knowledge. Not only this, Imam Malik himself had met Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Malik had met Imam Abu Hanifa, and he got knowledge from him. And he praised him in such amazing words. One of the things that you need to know about Imam Abu Hanifa, that he was so intelligent. He was so good at arguments. He was so intelligent at arguments. He could convince you of anything. Imam Malik, what did he say? He said, لَقَدْ لَقِيتُ رَجُلًا إِنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يُقْنِعَكَ أَنَّ هَذَا ذَهَبْ أَقْنَعَكَ. I had met a man, he's saying that about Imam Abu Hanifa. If he wants to convince you that wall made out of gold, he would convince you. He had the intelligence of how to argue and how to etc. and how, like, the rational thinking. That's something some of the scholars got it as a weak point when it comes to Imam Abu Hanifa later, but we will discuss this in details. But just I wanted to tell you, each one of them, we mentioned when did they born, when did they die, but each one of them had something special. That's why he was so recognized. They were so famous, and each and every one was so recognized because of that. And Allah wanted to serve the Muslim Ummah through the different dimensions, through the different way of thinking. So the first one is Imam Abu Hanifa. What made his madhab so special? It's based on ar-ra'i. Ar-ra'i. What's the ra'i means? Ar-ra'i means al-ijtihad. They were focusing more and more on the rational way of thinking, extracting the laws by themselves from the Quran, of course, but depending on knowing the object that you can take from the Islamic rule and the spirit of the Islamic rule itself. What's the wisdom behind that rule? So they used to get that through thinking a lot and depending on the rational way of extracting and measuring the rules, and they didn't depend too much upon the ahadith. And why is that? Because they were in Iraq. They didn't get that much of narrations of the ahadith like Imam Malik had. Let me give you numbers so you can figure out the difference and see why that happened. Imam Malik, for instance, in his Muwatta, how many ahadith had wrote in his book? Almost 5,000 hadith. Almost 5,000 hadith. And what had reached to Imam Abu Hanifa in Iraq will not exceed the limit of 2,000 hadith. So that means he does not have much evidences to depend upon. That's why they started to work on their own, means to do ijtihad, to do the rational thinking, to implement. So now you have two ways of approach, the rational approach and the traditional approach. And that's the way of Imam Malik. That's the second one. Imam Malik, we call him Amalu Ahli al-Madina. He stuck with the actions of the people of al-Madina. And he has his own, his own excuse. Because he was in al-Madina. Rasulullah left the last years in al-Madina. The companions were around him. And the followers who got from the companions, they lived in al-Madina. So they examined each and everything by themselves. So his madhab had depended on the action of the people of al-Madina because they are the best at that time. So we can consider it as the traditional approach versus the rational approach in Iraq from Imam Abu Hanifa. And all of them had did their best to serve our ummah. We don't say someone is right, who I am. We cannot say someone is right, no. They did their each thing possible so they can serve their religion. Yes, that's why I'm saying they took it as a weak point from Imam Abu Hanifa, because they said he didn't depend completely on the hadith. Many of the details, how to practice Islam, how to do your salah, many of these ahadith didn't reach to Abu Hanifa. He didn't have enough ahadith. They didn't have cell phones, YouTube, Zoom. No, they had nothing. So they relied only on what they had. And they had the Quran. So they had the Quran, and let's say, just a rough number, let's say third of the ahadith, that is what they reached to them. That's why you could find differences. So what's the reason of the differences happen between the madhahib? It's related or based on the knowledge that reached each group. So Imam Abu Hanifa was the least one, had the hadith knowledge, like had the hadith amount of how many hadith that reached to him. And that will surprise you afterwards. When we come to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, you will find big difference between him and Imam Malik. And let me continue. So we mentioned the policy, the strategy of Imam Abu Hanifa, and then the strategy of Imam Malik, the action of the people of Al-Madinah. Whatever they did, he used to authorize it and also based on the 5,000 hadith that he had more details and more access to the Sunnah, even more than Imam Abu Hanifa. Then we have Imam Shafi'i. Who is his Sheikh? Imam Malik. Imam Malik. So Imam al-Shafi'i developed his madhab, but he depended on the hadith, but not any hadith, the very authentic hadith. So he depended on almost what Imam Malik had made, but he added something that he was like more knowledgeable in the hadith, because he got the knowledge of Imam Malik beside and plus the knowledge of other scholars, plus his own researches. You know, you got the point. So he got the 5,000 that Imam Malik, khalas, that's finished. Let's get more. So it became more wider in knowledge, especially in hadith, than Imam Malik. Then he started to develop his opinions according to how much evidences had reached him. Okay, now you got the point. So Imam Shafi'i, what makes his madhab so special, that he had more evidences and he relied on more evidences than Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and his sheikh is Imam Shafi'i. That means he will get all the knowledge of Imam Shafi'i that he built his madhab upon, beside that no one would be like Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal in the hadith. I told you I will surprise you. How many hadith that we mentioned for Imam Malik? 5,000. You know how many hadith Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal had collected? 30,000. 30,000 hadith. Yes, but we said before, some difference in the slide, some slight difference in the meaning or in the narration or changes in the chain of the transmission, they used to consider it as hadith. Let's say, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. The actions are based on your niyyah, your intention. If I am the one who has this hadith, and I have two students, inshallah will forgive me. You are not students, you are even better than me. So I have brother Nur and brother Ahsan. So both of them, I give him that hadith, and brother Ahsan got this hadith. So they started to teach the hadith. So what's the chain of the transmission for your students? Your students. Let's say Ibrahim took from Nur, and from Nur took from Ahmed. Then Ahsan has students like, let's say, Hussein, then Ahsan, then Ahmed. They used to consider this way hadith, and that way is hadith. You got it? So even if they had slight difference in the chain of the translation, but the text is one, the meaning is one, 100%. Just slight difference in the chain of the transmission. You chose one, someone added someone, because they wanted to depend on the memory. Yes, so that's they consider it hadith by itself. So when I say 30 hadith, 30,000 hadith, that does not mean 30 separated texts like different. No, they may be the same in the text, but they differ in the chain of the transmission. Maybe after you filter them out, they could reach to 7,000, 8,000, you know? But when you add the chain, the differences in the chain of the transmission, they could reach to that number. So let's just wanted to tell you about the Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, what made him so special, that he was working on the hadith. So now he has wider and more evidences than anyone else, you know? And each and every corner, each and every part, each and every area, they had students, and those students followed the opinion of the people of the madhab, and they stick with that. But now the question is, I wanna end by this question, then inshallah next time, we will talk in details about each and every one. Let me give you the last question. Imam, do I need to have a madhab, a certain madhab to follow? No. You have Quran and Sunnah. If you stick with the Quran and the Sunnah, yes, of course, even those madhahib, even those imams, they took from the Quran and Sunnah like you. So you do not need to have a certain madhab all your entire life following just this madhab. And subhanallah, I am criticizing those people who are considering the madhab as deen. And they started not to worship Allah, but they started to worship the sheikh or the scholar of the madhab. That's shirk billah. That is shirk billah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you said to him, brother, what do you think about this? He will tell you, no, I am Shafi'i. I will stick with no matter what will happen. So where is the flexibility? Where is that mercy? Where is that tolerance in Islam? Let me give you one example, just one example. What about reciting Al-Fatiha after the Imam finishes his recitation? If the Imam finished Al-Fatiha, are you supposed to recite? What about if the Imam gave you room? What about if the Imam waited after Ameen and he waited and he gave you that room to recite? Are you supposed to recite or not? What about if somebody recited? What about if somebody did not recite? You got my point now. So now we are talking about an issue. I just wanted to tell you that you may consider yourself, I am Hanafi. And you discovered that all what you are doing in your life is Hanbali. Maybe in Al-Fatiha you are doing Hanbali. In Al-Ruku' you are doing Shafi'i. In Al-Sujud you are doing Abu Hanifa. So you by yourself, you are mixing between the madhahib and you don't know. Which is fine. Which is something I encourage you to do. But finally, do not say, no, I am Maliki. Like the people of Saudi Arabia, for example. They stick with Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. If you have a person, he wanted to pray with you, you will be the Imam. So mostly he comes, slight difference between you and him, so you can figure out who is the Imam and who is not. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said, no, both of them has to sit down, to stand up equally. No difference. So when I was working there in Al-Dammam 2007, so I had the person, so I went to be behind him. He said, no, go ahead, move forward, be exactly like me. I said, so what happened if I did that? He said, your salah will not be acceptable. I said, astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. They are playing gods. That's the case. As I got a call from a brother like 2 days ago, and he said, Imam, they told me if you did that action, you would be in the hellfire. I said, listen, brother, whoever told you that you would be in the hellfire, just ask him to do a favor. Tell him, please, let me see the keys of the hellfire. And then I will believe you. No one has the keys of Jannah. No one has the keys of the hellfire to determine whether you be in Jannah or the hellfire. We are not gods. We are not angels to determine. We are not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So please be aware of this. So let's go back to the recitation of Al-Fatiha. Let's see that as example, and I will finish by this. So Imam Abu Hanifa said That's his madhab. He said, you are not required. Do not read after the imam, whether it was loud, reciting loudly, or the imam was reciting loudly or quietly. You are not required to say anything at all based on the hadith. Listen to this. I will apply what I mentioned on this example. So what's his hadith? Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the verse of the Quran. وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. That's what Allah said in the Quran. When the Quran is being read, listen and listen attentively, and you might be, getting Allah's mercy. So Allah said, listen carefully, answer. If the Quran was recited, listen attentively. So that's the case. So they started to respond to him. Okay, what about if the Imam recited and then he gave you a room? Now the Quran is not recited. That's how they started to respond to each other. He understood the verse that do not recite. They responded, what about if their salah and the Imam is quiet? He said, but at least he is reading. Even if he was quiet, but he is reading. Then they started to argue. Let's move to the second madhab to see what's their dalil, what's their evidence. Imam al-Maliki or Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, both of them, and listen, they had something in common. What's this? What is this? They had something in common. Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. The 5,000 hadith. The 5,000 hadith. That's why most of their evidences will be almost like similar, because they are taking from the same source. So Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal said, you are not supposed to read behind the Imam at all. But they said it's mustahab to read. It's preferable if he gave you a gap to read. So now they are exactly like Imam Abu Hanifa. They said you are not supposed to read. Imam Abu Hanifa said you are not supposed to read, but they added something, just very, very slightly. They are said it is mustahab. It's preferable to read if you have time. That's the only difference. What Imam al-Shafi'i said? Imam al-Shafi'i. So what's the evidence of Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal? They got the hadith of Rasulullah. And by the way, Imam Abu Hanifa didn't get this hadith. Imam Abu Hanifa didn't get it. Yes, it didn't reach to that area at that time. He depended on the Quran. If he got this hadith, his opinion in this issue would be stronger than his evidence from the Quran. Listen to the hadith. It's exactly matching with this case. He said, Rasulullah ﷺ said, Man kana lahu imam, who had been praying behind Imam, فَقِرَاءَةُ الْإِمَامِ قِرَاءَةٌ لَهُ. Then the recitation of the Imam is considered as a recitation for him. Khalas, it's so. So if Imam Abu Hanifa, if he had this hadith had reached to him, they wouldn't have all these arguments that you can read, like almost 400 pages in their messages between the scholars going back and forth. So what's Imam al-Shafi'i said? Imam al-Shafi'i said, you must read al-Fatiha after the Imam. You must read al-Fatiha. What's his evidence? Is the hadith of Rasulullah. Allahu Akbar. He said, La salata liman lam yaqra' bi Fatihati kitab. Rasulullah ﷺ said, there will not be considered as salah if you did not recite al-Fatiha. Now you got all the evidences. Can you give me the best of the opinions? Now you have all the evidences. If the Quran, the verse of the Quran, If the Quran was recited, listen carefully. Number two, if you are praying behind Imam, so his recitation will be considered as a recitation for you. The third hadith, or the third evidence, there will not be a salah considered as salah if you did not recite al-Fatiha.
If you're behind Imam, then that question does not arise.
Yes, Allahu Akbar. So the third hadith, that's why the ulama, the scholars, had agreed upon finally after, and not only these four opinions. You have for Sufyan ibn Uyayna, you have al-Awza'i, you have Abu Yusuf, you have al-Shaybani, the student of Abu Hanifa, his own, like his opinion. You have other scholars. You have al-Layth ibn Sa'd in Egypt. You have many. Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. You have Abdullah ibn Abbas himself. You know, after all these discussions, the scholars agreed upon that you are not supposed to read behind the Imam. That's the consensus. The end of. So now, just wanted to tell you how it is going. If somebody came as individual to me after Salat al-Jum'ah, for example, and he said, Imam, do I need to read after you when you recite al-Fatiha? So what should I tell him? Tell him all this story? I'm not supposed to give him that long story and argument and summarize 400 pages for him. I will tell him the fatwa. No, you are not required to make it. If you had a room and you like to make it, searching for more ajr, for more reward from Allah, read it. No problem. So now you see the fatwa? 1 minute. That's it. But for you as Imam, that's the journey of your life. And he couldn't figure out how many years you had studied to come to that conclusion. That's why big difference between usul al-fiqh and fiqh itself, and the fatwa and the hukm. Fatwa, 1 minute, one sentence, khalas. And the hukm needs lots of details. I'm pretty sure that you got bored of me tonight, but I'm sure also, inshallah, that you have the nice hearts, so you will forgive someone like me. May Allah bless you. Allahumma ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Barakallahu feekum. Inshallah, we will continue and have, and by the way, Imam Yahya, inshallah, will be the one who will give the khutbah tomorrow here in the masjid. And I will go to Salam Masjid in Dunedin, inshallah. So he will come here for the khutbah. I will go, instead of him. And alhamdulillah, inshallah, for those who are following on Zoom, we will put the laptop and Zoom, and for Imam Yahya, inshallah, so that will be on Zoom. Do not worry, you will not miss anything, inshallah. And we might have commentaries on the khutbahs, after Salat al-Maghrib tomorrow, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum, jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.